Hey, Talk of the Town is up and running in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, USA. I'm Scott Montesano, and this is where the Chippewa Valley comes to talk. Hey, don't forget to give Eau Claire Hometown Media a favorable rating on YouTube or Spotify or the iHeart app, and check out all of the great shows we have. Numbers have been, again, through the roof the last few months. So excited. We're no longer the new thing in town. Been around for some 7 years. Gonna be what, 8 years coming up this May, and a lot of talk of the towns and a lot of things we have covered over the years, and a lot of other great programs we have had, and we've got plenty to get to once again today here on Talk of the Town. We are 2 weeks away from some rather intriguing local races, and we will no doubt touch on those in a couple of weeks and what will the fallout be. And most notably of them, you have a school referendum in Altoona that seemingly is going positively towards the direction of it passing. It is an operational referendum. Not a lot of toys with that. You have school board races. Eau Claire School Board has a race, which we'll talk about in a moment. There hasn't been much from it. You've got a very exciting race in Menominee for the mayor, where a 15-year incumbent is seeing a legitimate challenge. And that is intriguing when, by and large, the incumbent has been well liked. But you have a newcomer into city politics who is about a year into being a member of the city council and has aspirations and is now putting together a pretty good challenge. And that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But obviously, you've got the Eau Claire City Council presidency that has become, I think, a big focal point for the city. And as we'll talk about in a moment, we're going to do something that I said on this very program last week we don't do, and that is give an endorsement. And the reason I don't feel comfortable typically giving endorsements is we've got a lot of partners. At the same time, I talked to a couple today, and I talked to other people, and they said, Scott, you give your opinion all the time on the program. So it's a little fugazi that you say you don't want to give an endorsement. So I will give an endorsement today with the understanding that, as we've always said on this program, you can make up your own mind. I want you to make up your own mind. Now, if you're smart, you follow Uncle Scotty. You know, the smart people follow Uncle Scotty. But you can make up your own mind, take what I have to say and my reasons, and put it into your own soup. All right? Everybody's soup, everybody's Sunday sauce is a little bit different. Even if everybody can look at the same recipe and it still tastes a little bit different because everybody puts in just a little bit different. Might even be the most minute difference. So take what I say. Hopefully you follow in my path. That's what I'm hoping for. But at the very least, I want you to make a more educated decision. Either this validates what you are thinking one way or the other. Maybe it gets you to question it just a little bit. So we've got the Eau Claire City Council presidency. And as time has gone on in the last few days, I think it's become very clear, especially with what we're going to talk about next. I think there's only one pick for city council presidency. You have Jeremy Gregor, who was on the city council for a while. Before that was with the Chippewa Valley Museum. And you've got Scott Rogers, who did some business dealings in the area and then was most recently with the Eau Claire Chamber of Commerce. He headlined the Chamber of Commerce's governmental affairs, but he himself has not been in local politics. Folks, the reason I think there's only one pick right now. I don't think it's close. I think you're surprised with what I'm going to say, but I'll tell you right now, I think it was a little closer up until maybe a week or so ago. But in the course of the last week, I really think our area will miss an opportunity, maybe be harmed with one candidate. Not that they're evil. Not that this individual's evil. I just don't think they're equipped for what we need right now. The other person gives us our best shot to carve a new path, which we need with this budgetary crisis Eau Claire is on. This is both a crisis but also an opportunity, which we'll again talk about in a moment. I heard some very exciting things out of the public comment period last night, on Monday night, including from some politicians. We have a potential to carve a new path that not only will fix what we currently have, but get us onto a better trajectory anyway. And I think the one pick for city council presidency is Scott Rogers. Hands down, Scott Rogers. If you give me 10 picks, they're all going to Scott Rogers. I don't think Jeremy Greigert is equipped for what we have. And the and what has happened in the last few days with all of these endorsements he's touting that he's had, these are not endorsements of people that necessarily are good with budgeting. It's very much a more social idea. Not socialism. No. But if we were in a case right now where we needed more social ideas, social policies being the focal point, that's not it. A local municipality can only focus on its social issues when it's taking care of everything else. Social issues, as we have also learned in the especially last 6 to 10 years, has to be a state and federal thing. It has to be, because state and federal aren't concerned about paving your roads. I know that's a cliche, but you get the idea. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Remember, there was that while for the city of Eau Claire where the city of Eau Claire was proclamations and declarations of being on board with the Paris Climate Accord and other BS things that had nothing to do with local governance. Scott Rogers, I feel pretty comfortable that his focus would first and foremost be on not only the current budgeting, but how are things being done. Now, Scott Rogers is the de facto conservative candidate, but not because he has leaned into conservative politics in this race, but because Jeremy Greigert is all in on liberal policies as seen by those who are endorsing him. The city council presidency needs to be nonpartisan. It has to be nonpartisan. Terry Weld was definitely that. And frankly, for the most part, Emily Berge. Even though we know she's a liberal Democrat, her ideology is kept mostly quiet in the presidency race. Now, for both Weld and Berge, as we said before, their role as the president was that of what you see from a Kiwanis Club president, an Optimist Club president, any type of president in a service club or even a board of directors presidency so that they have somebody to run the meetings. They ran the meetings. And that's what this city needed at that time. Cool things off. You had a lot of activism in city council policies for many years until in this decade. You haven't really had that. And the leadership of both Weld and Berge in that role were a big factor. Now we need something different. And we need somebody that's going to take charge in what is a race, by the way. Both Weld and Berge kind of got the role. They were unchallenged for it as well. Here there's a challenge. Here, people in this community, and I know there are some in city government that do not want to hear this, but this is the truth. People are voting in this race like the president is the mayor. This is the highest office that people in the city of Eau Claire can vote for. Red, blue, yellow, whatever. Both established brands, Republicans and Democrats, have fiscal failures. So it's not that Democrats can't fix finances, nor that Republicans are money wizards. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. However, political ideology has zero to do with running this city, and this is an opportunity to reinforce that. I think Scott Rogers brings a better chance of things being run the way they should, not based off of what his ideologies are. Also, the fact you have former counselors that are coming out in support of Jeremy Greigert, I think, is not a good thing. Many of these counselors were counselors when the mistakes of just a few years ago have led to what we are having right now. Yes, part of it is state reimbursement. State monies in the municipalities have not kept up. There is a defense. However, that's not the entire reason. And a lot of counselors never looked at the forest through the trees. I don't necessarily know if I like we need a little bit of a change. And Scott Rogers is not some wild outsider coming in from outside the area. He's not Lionel Hutz bringing his monorail idea. He's been in this community. He's worked with the businesses in this community. He's worked with the people in this community. Champions that railroad. That's the only thing. Well, you want to look at a knock on Scott Rogers. He's part of that railroad group that for the last 15 years has said we're right around the corner from getting the passenger service here. But that's a whole other thing. New blood is needed. A shakeup, just a little bit, is necessary. I honestly think Scott Rogers, the absolute best choice for city council presidency, city council president, take over the presidency in the city of Eau Claire. Now, does this mean I'm about to pack up and move to Altoona if Jeremy Greigert wins? No. I do think it's a big missed opportunity for people in this community. And am I sitting here saying Scott Rogers is going to be the absolute fixer to everything? No. I think he gives us the best chance of that happening. And I just can't see if Jeremy Greigert comes in, what will likely happen is that the presidency will stay the way it has for the last little bit, which isn't the worst thing in that the president isn't really dictating any type of policy or trying to steer things. They are running the meetings. That's basically what they're doing. Scott Rogers will come in, and I think it would take on more of what it was under Kerry Kincaid, in which Kerry Kincaid acted like a de facto mayor in this town. I think Scott Rogers would come in and he will lead the charge. He will be the voice of that city council. He'll do probably a lot of talking. He'll be very out forward with stuff. He will be the leader this city needs. Because the city right now does not have a great leader. It just doesn't. This is not a knock on Berge. She was not put into that role to be that. The city council presidency became kind of a quiet position for a while. But you need a leader, because you're sure as hell not getting it from Stephanie Hirsch, and frankly, Dave Solberg shouldn't be talking. Not that Dave Solberg can't be talking, but if I'm Dave Solberg, Every time the city wants to put him out there to talk on city decisions. If I'm Dave Solberg, I'm eventually turning and saying, no, you guys created this. I wanted the job as city manager. You guys didn't want it. Put her out there in front. Stephanie Hirsch. Now, whoever does win the city council presidency is going to inherit the $2 million deficit that the city of Eau Claire is seeing. Public discussion on Monday night. There will be a lot of forums, by the way, in the next month or two. And I do recommend you check them out. The city is doing a very good job of having these forums. But last night, Monday night, city council week, so they had public discussion on Monday night, and they invited comment on the innovation grants that the city has thought of as being an option. These innovation grants from Wisconsin, the state of Wisconsin, could be used for Fairfax, Pool, Hobbs, and the soccer park. And we've talked about in the last couple weeks, there's a lot of lukewarm interest from the groups because the local nonprofit groups at various youth facilities like Eau Claire Youth Hockey would have to then take over the operation, and that's something that you can't just snap a finger and do. That's a months-long process, and you have to almost rebuild your whole organization to find, okay, who's willing to run it, all that. We've talked about that before. It's not that Eau Claire Youth Hockey, for example, is lazy. Absolutely not. It's just that they weren't ever set up for this, and they'd have to go through a process that might take 6 months to a year before they would really be able to run things. This is something that you talk about for a little while, and then you put into motion, but it takes about a year to get into motion. But the public discussion on the budgeting, and it doesn't appear there's an appetite to use the innovation grants. People spoke, people with youth hockey, people with the figure skaters, everybody pretty much per person's calling it a Band-Aid to have the grants. Even Emily Berge and other counselors have come out publicly and said it's a Band-Aid. It doesn't fix the ultimate issue if you just take the grant money. You want to this is an opportunity for us to redesign things, which is why, again, I point at Scott Rogers, which is why I'd like to see Scott Rogers. I think Scott Rogers is better off situated to say this is what we need, this is what we can do. And maybe having a guy like Scott Rogers who has been entwined with business, and I know that's a lazy thing to say, this person's run business. When you have run business, when it comes to money, you do have a lot of these other individuals that are in the city government, God bless them, but they have usually not been somebody who has been in charge of having to cover payroll. They also have usually not been in a position where they've had to go out and get funds. Even if they work for a nonprofit, that's a little different. And I think you're seeing that with some of these ideas that they've got to try to cover the expenditures and to try to cover the debts they have. For example, there is some more city stupidity. So we talk about the Hobbs Ice Arena, but I think the same thing is being proposed to other venues too. The latest idea with Hobbs that's come out in the last couple of days, remember the innovation grant doesn't seem to be happening, but they're already looking at another idea. The latest idea with Hobbs is to have the various groups that are inside of Hobbs sell advertising. Now, you're going to say, Scott, isn't that what you talked about last week? No. I'll tell you why their idea will not fix the issue. This is not like the Eau Claire Express selling advertising at Carson Park. This is the city trying to do what it should do. This is the city trying to take what it should do and pass off the work to somebody else. They're scared of it. The problem is, no matter how they divvy it up, if you say to these user groups, we're going to raise your fund, we're going to raise your rates, but you guys have carte blanche to sell advertising, That sounds good. That's usually what's done when you, say, with a sports venue, lease out to somebody. I'm going to charge you a set rate. You can make your money back selling the advertising. The problem here is you don't have one entity doing that. The idea is going to be to have them all do it. If you send the Eau Claire Youth Hockey out, the figure skaters, high school, and the Blue Golds out, they will cannibalize each other. Bob's Widgets. Bob's Widgets wants to buy $5,000 dashboard. By the way, that's what they should be. About a $5,000 to $6,000 per dashboard. Bob's Widget wants to buy a dashboard. I'll write $5,000. But who gets the credit? Maybe Bob's Widgets likes the figure skaters and he likes Eau Claire Youth Hockey. Who gets the credit for that? Are these groups going to try to are these groups going to be selling in concert with each other? Hey, no matter who sells it, we all get the benefit. There's a lot of problems with this. It's hard to motivate people to sell, go out and sell, when there's no commission, which you're not going to have for this, no commission, and no guarantee that all their work goes back to the club. It's hard enough as it is to make a sales job a volunteer job. Hard enough. This isn't you can just write a few emails and send them out. Especially when you're dealing with selling $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. You don't want just $1,000 for a dashboard. You're screwing yourself over if you do that. You've got to make phone calls. You've got to go meet with people. And I understand there are people that do this with other civic clubs. They sell stuff. They raise money for the latest fundraiser or whatever. I get that. I get that. But this is a little bit different. You're looking for high dollars and a lot of them. Selling is a full-time gig. You'll get the low-hanging fruit, but that'll go quickly. The city needs to do the advertising sales. The city should. And there's a chance you could turn costly positions into revenue generators. And if you've got people on the staff that say, I can't sell, I don't want to sell, then you let them go. Because the job they were hired for has changed. There's other things you can do as well. The issue you have as well, you don't have a main tenant there. You don't have a main tenant. Do you go out? This is the other thing I told somebody. It's hard. You don't have the facility. You would need locker room space. But maybe you go out and try to get a junior hockey team. There's holes in that theory. There's holes in that and territorial rights for the Steel. But maybe you go out and get a junior hockey team. Charge them a boatload. And give them advertising rights. There's a lot of things, but I don't think having the group sell advertising will fix the issue. I don't think that'll fix the issue because I don't think you're going to get the revenue you think you're going to get. Quietly, moving on, there is, amongst all the things going on in a couple weeks, an Eau Claire school board election. The school board has a contested race, the Eau Claire school board. There are 5 people vying for 2 open seats. Now, you have 3 incumbents because of the way times have run out and whatnot in terms. You have 3 incumbents, so one's going to be out. Your 3 incumbents are Lori Bika, Jarrett Dement, and Pa Tao, along with Phil Lyons, who once served on the school board, and John Moskal. Now, the UW Eau Claire Student Senate is hosting a forum Tuesday night. Honestly, I have no opinion. I don't have issues with what's been going on with the school. And when that is the case, the incumbents tend to be the default. Tough thing here is You've got 3 incumbents for 2 spots. In that case, probably go with who's been there the longest, and that would be Lori and Jarrett. The reverse, by the way, if people have had lots of problems out there, here's their chance to get a pound of flesh and put Phil Lyons, though, remember, he too has been a school board member in the recent past, and John Moskal. You just haven't heard a lot from the Eau Claire School Board race. Unless it's something that really interests you, you just haven't heard a lot. And this goes down to, you're having the forum tonight, where you just do not have, this is where, folks, the death of media, especially local media, hurts you. So many of you out there have championed, the wild media, the media's out to get this, blah, blah, blah. Media's naughty, the media's dirty, the media doesn't tell the whole story. You don't know what you have until it's gone. So you just haven't heard a lot of stories. You haven't had a lot. And this is where a good, robust paper and a good, robust local AM talk radio station would really have been able to dive into things for you. I do give WEAU credit that they are hosting that City Council Presidency Forum. Could have had somebody good, though, hosting it. That'd be me. Asking the hard questions. But, you people that champion, media's bad. Well, the media industry's changed partially because of that. And you don't have local media as much anymore. So things like this, the Eau Claire School Board election, unless you're really dialed into it, you don't really know much about it. Again, people got to be careful about what they complain about. 10 years ago, not that long ago, people would complain about, I want to unbundle my cable. Why do I have to spend X amount of dollars and get 300 channels from Spectrum? I only want to watch like 10 of the channels. Let's break it up. And then you got the streaming services, right? And now the streaming services, the money, nobody's going to charge you $5 per station you want to watch. Now you need, if you really want to cover everything you want to see, especially from sports, you've got to have 5-6 services. And now you got thousands of channels to choose from. Now, somehow, if you've done it right like we have at the Montesano House, you're paying not that much more than you did 10 years ago. But that's not the case for a lot of people. All right, we're back with you on Thursday. We'll have a recorded show on Thursday. Because Thursday afternoon I've got to be speaking live to students at Memorial, giving them my wisdom for free. They're going to get all the things they've learned all year. They're going to get the best education on Thursday afternoon. All right, that'll wrap it up for us here today. On behalf of everyone who made this podcast possible, I'm Scott Montesano, saying there's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow shining at the end of every day. Make sure to take advantage of it. And until next time, so long, everybody.